There we are. Okay. So we can, I'll do like a little brief introduction. I'm being completely casual with this channel. Like I
Mhm.
thought about going in a different direction and being like having a specific background all the time and having all the logo stuff. And I'm like, you know what? That's just not me. I'm just putting it out there. So,
Yeah.
so we'll get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I have Ellyn Dye with me again today. We're going to be talking about self-love and just sharing wisdom, around this specific topic because, it's such a fundamental thing. Like I was just thinking, Ellyn, before we we started our meeting, when was it that I first understood that self love was like of uber importance in life. And I can remember being this angsty 16-year-old, just struggling with emotions and my place in the world and family dynamics and all of that. And just understanding that fear was at the root of every problem and that self love was the most important thing to being happy. It's like really kind of basic. Where did you first come to understand that self love was such an important thing in this life?
Well, I'm impressed that you figured it out that young. I often say I was a slow learner, and boy, is that ever true. Um, I was basically told during my NDE that I had asked, why did I create such a difficult uh, childhood? Childhood environment growing up, basically my whole life, but particularly my childhood. So this was like in 1985 when I was 35 years old, and they said, "Oh, well, you created that because you wanted to master self-love in this life because there were things you wanted to do later in life that would require it. You wouldn't be able to do them if you didn't have it. And you'd been trying to master self-love for several lifetimes. It's a really hard one.
Mm-hmm.
And this time you were determined you were going to master it or die trying." And I said, "It almost killed me." And they said, "Almost." With with all of the joy and understanding of beings who have never been in a body on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So and they took me back. Actually, I was 16, I guess, about 16 when they said the spark of self-love was ignited in me.
Interesting.
But it was just a tiny spark, and I had to fan the flames.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even until, from 16 to 35, it's like I didn't even have a clue about self-love because I was so busy turning myself into a pretzel to try to please everybody around me
Mm-hmm.
and then wondering why it didn't work. And but even it wasn't even like after I got back from my NDE. I mean, I intellectually understood that that was important, but I didn't even have a clue what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of started working on it, and it took, a couple decades. And I'd say finally, within the last 10 or 15 years, I had it well established, and probably the last 10 or 15 years, I've been kind of like fine tuning it and honing it and,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. But yeah, if you learned that at 16, you were way ahead of the game.
Well, I learned the importance of it. Like,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
it's that intuitive, and it's a download.
Hmm.
I didn't know what to call it back then, but I had this, it's that inner knowing, that inner deep understanding that that was essential for living like the kind of life that I wanted to live. I didn't know
Right.
what that was at that time, but you know, I certainly wasn't living it then, and I didn't for decades and decades. But you know, the people pleasing thing that you brought up, that comes from, for me, that comes from a place of lack of self-love, in that we're not putting ourselves first, we're putting others first. And while some may see that as being selfless, it's actually detrimental to the person doing it, because you know, when we're not meeting our own needs in whatever way, XYZ, then we're not bringing our full self to the situation, whatever it may be.
Right.
So, you know, people pleasing, it's like one thing to say yes, yes, yes all the time and want to do it, you know, want to be helpful, want to show up, want to, you know, be of service or whatever. And then it's another thing to say yes, 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 and in the back of your mind saying, God, I wish I didn't have to do that because I have this XYZ to do. And so there's you know, it's never just like a like a easily, you know, navigated situation that around other people and putting oneself first. But what sorts of things like could you share with the community that has helped you not be a people pleaser in your life?
Um, well, for me, it really was kind of like after my NDE, it really was a huge process of kind of like changing my whole personality in a lot of ways.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I think my problem at that point was I didn't know who the hell I was. Because, I mean, I had been raised again, I know I set this up, which was why I asked, why would I do that to myself? But I was raised with, constant harsh criticism that everything about me was wrong. I mean, basically, I was like stupid and ugly, and um, I would express a thought, and my father would look at me like, "What the hell is wrong with you to think that?" And oh, okay. But so, I mean, I kind of grew up thinking nothing about me was right. So therefore, I had to be what in order to be accepted, because I had abandonment and rejection and lack of validation over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
in order to be accepted, I had to be the person these other people wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, which I didn't really know, but I would try to assess. And so I was lucky after my NDE because I found someone who was starting to channel, and she was channeling these really amazing beings. And I was able for about 5 or 6 years to take classes, channeled classes. And they, I don't think I would have made it without them, because they really, put it into perspective and talked me through everything. And one of the conversations was, well, how do you develop self-love? And they said, well, you need to learn who you are first.
Mm-hmm.
And they said and I, how do I do that? It's a process. And so they said, start trying different things. Some things you'll like, some things you'll feel neutral, some things you'll not like. And that it's a process of elimination. What things do I really like to do? Because in the past, if somebody said, "Oh, let's go do this," I'd say, "Okay."
Hmm.
And then I'd get there and it's like, "Oh God, I hate this," but I would never say anything. And if they asked me again, I'd go again because I wanted them to like me.
Hmm.
And so it was kind of fascinating to me. And they said each time you find out one of these little things about yourself, it's like you're creating a mosaic, and each one is a little tile.
Hmm.
And at some point you'll have enough tiles that you really have an idea of, who you are, what you like. And then of course, as you're doing that, you also have to learn to say no.
Hmm.
And I love the phrase, no is a complete sentence, because I was not allowed to say no in my household.
Hmm.
Um, and, we get what in the 90s when I started saying no to people, really practicing, you've got to practice it.
Yes.
It doesn't just come. When I started saying no to people, people turned on me.
Hmm.
And I mean, pardon my French, people started calling me a bitch.
Hmm.
When did you become this? You were always so nice. What's happened to you? What's wrong with you? And it was fascinating to me that I finally realized that these people were used to me always just rolling over and saying okay and doing whatever they wanted me to do, that when I started asserting myself, they did not like it.
Hmm.
So, I had some people fall away and I met some new people and I got to the point that when somebody would call me selfish or call me a bitch, I would say, "Thank you, it's working."
Ah.
And they just sort of go, "Huh?" Because it meant to me I was I was assessing what they were asking me to do and determining whether I wanted to do it or not, or, if I had the time, if I had the energy or whatever.
Hmm.
And then if I said no, you know, they'd either accept that or they'd get mad at me.
Hmm.
And so it meant that I was standing up for myself when people started saying I was selfish and this, that, and the other thing. And so that was a process. The other thing, I got this book and I highly recommend it to everybody. I can't think of the author's name, but it's still in print. It's called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty.
Hmm.
And if if you have trouble saying no to people, I carried it around like the Bible for about 5 years.
Ah, nice. I'll put a link
Be,
underneath the video.
yeah, it's a fabulous book. It came out in probably the 70s or 80s, and it it not only reinforces the fact that you have the right to say no, but it tells you how to say no, and it shows you the way people will try to manipulate you
Late. Yes.
to get you to say yes. And there's all these different ways, and it gives you specific tools for how to do it.
That's perfect because my next question was going to be what advice would you have for the person who is trying this and they're running into roadblocks?
Yeah,
Um,
well, that book is
Perfect.
my first, and I do coaching, and I almost 90% of my coaching clients, interestingly enough, come to me with these issues
Mhm.
because I've lived through them. And I recommend this. I should get a commission from this guy because I recommend this book so often because it was crucial to me.
Yeah.
So, for example, there's there's this thing called the broken record, and um, it's just no matter what they throw at you as a justification of why you should say yes, you just keep saying, no, sorry, I have plans. No, sorry, I have plans. Or just no, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Just repeat it over and over and over again. And finally, they'll stop.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that thing of, never explain. Because if you say, oh, my stepmother was great. She'd call up and demand that I come out for dinner. I don't know why. And with no notice, because of course I have no life. I'm just sitting around waiting for her to call and tell me to come out for dinner. So, she'd demand I come out to dinner. I said, oh, no, I have plans. And she'd say, well, what are they? And before I got good at it, I'd say, oh, well, I have company coming. Well, bring them. I was not at a place where I could say, well, neither of us would enjoy that, so I'm not going to do it. But I did learn, every time I offered a reason, she would jump on it and tear it apart and tell me why that was not a good reason.
Wow, she was really testing you.
Oh, yeah, she was good. Oh, one of the most manipulative people I've ever met. So it's like, hey, I chose well, And so those are some of the tools, and because it teaches you how to recognize when people are trying to manipulate you and the ways that they do it, and then it also gives you tools, to stop that.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing is giving yourself permission to actually pause and assess, do I want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have the resources to do it? I would do stuff when I was really poor. After my NDE and I quit my job and all this other stuff, and I was dirt poor. But if somebody said, oh, we're going to go over here and spend money, I'd say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't say no. So I'd be spending money that I didn't have. And it wasn't that they were mean, they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing. It's like when we're not honest with ourselves, we can't be honest with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know. They don't know what our limits are. They don't, we have to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have people who do what I used to do with, oh, that person should know what I need and just offer it without me asking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, you should be able to understand what your needs are and give yourself permission to ask for them. 90% of the time, people are like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
it's just
it's that fear
information.
of rejection.
Exactly. Exactly. And our fear of rejection, what I've really come to realize is it's like, why did none of my relationships ever really work out? It's like, because I wasn't showing up as who I am.
100%.
I was being somebody else who wasn't me. And people can feel that in the energy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know why, they just know that something's off.
Yes. Yes.
So we're not accomplishing the purpose that we want by pretending to be someone we're not.
Yes.
And I can't tell you, I was probably in my early 60s before I figured all of that out. It's like, oh my God.
That brings me to authenticity.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we're in the age of authenticity.
Yes.
You know,
Finally.
the fake, like presentation that so many humans feel they need to do socially
Yep.
on social media. It's like there is this falseness that people are just able to see right through, and it automatically inauthenticates that person in many people's eyes.
Yes.
Um, I guess speaking personally, just from my own point of view, the more authentic a person is, the more I'm likely to believe them. And I'm sure they've done studies on this. But
Yeah.
but getting to be that authentic person in order to present the truest self that you can
Hmm.
present to the world allows you to establish relationships with people, whoever or whatever, people, animals, because animals sense us more so
Oh,
than humans,
absolutely.
you know, to be able to establish relationships that you want to establish, number one, that are meaningful, if that's what you're
Hmm.
seeking. It's like you really digging down and getting to the root of who you are, and clearing out whatever garbage you need to clear out, and getting to that self-love where being authentic and saying no if you want to say no, showing on the flip side of that, showing up when you say you're going to show up,
Yeah.
you know and not being flaky. um that's another piece. And there's times where we're not able to do that energetically. I know, being a sensitive individual like I know you are to energies, sometimes the energies can be so overwhelming that I literally cannot show up. But I'll say
Right. Yeah.
I'm feeling like energetically really off. Like I feel like I can't be my full self that I want to be with you. So I need to reschedule, or I need to do whatever.
Hmm.
And those who truly love us and care for us will understand.
Right.
It's like that. But yeah, so that's something that authenticity is, like, I think, something that is growing in importance day by day here.
I think so too. And more people are being able to really sense that
Mm-hmm.
in people, which I think is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And because, we've lived in this society that was everything was built on lies, it's like,
Yes.
and I mean, not necessarily horrible lies to control you, but just lies. I mean, you watch the ads on television and it's like, oh, you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way. I wouldn't go to the grocery store without, full makeup, and,
Mm-hmm.
the right clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, who cares? If and some people love putting on makeup and stuff. That's great if that's your thing. But if you feel like that's the only face you can show to the world, then you're not coming from self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't be authentic until you have at least enough self-love to accept all of the parts of yourself. I mean, to me, it's sort of unconditional love is acceptance as far as I'm concerned, because you can accept all of the parts of yourself. You can accept the things you're good at. You can accept the things you're bad at. You can accept these are my darkest thoughts, and I hope nobody ever, realizes that I have them.
Mm-hmm.
All the different parts of yourself, they're all fine. But we've been taught, oh, don't ever show anybody that.
Mm-hmm.
And until we can accept that, we can't be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
We can't call up. I did learn when I first started saying no, or first started assessing, my favorite thing was when somebody would ask me to do something, because a lot of times they'd ask me and I would get caught up in their energy of enthusiasm
Mm-hmm.
and go, oh yeah, let's go do that. And then I'd get home and I'd go, why did I say yes? I hate doing that. It's like, and part of it was I couldn't say no a lot, but it was also that I would get caught up in their energy and
Yes.
I wasn't accurately assessing if I wanted to. So I did go through a time when, I'd have to call up people and say, when I said I would do that, I really don't think I can. I'm really sorry, so I had to do
Mm-hmm.
that a bit. which isn't great because, they're planning on you doing it. But what I did learn was to say, that sounds really interesting. Let me get back to you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that was, I guess, a device or whatever you want to call it. It would give me time to get out of their energy and assess if it was something I wanted to and if I could do.
Hmm.
Then I could get to them and I could give them an answer that was more authentic,
Right.
more real.
So that pause allows
The
you
pause. Yes.
to sort of
The
feel it through
yeah.
and make a decision that's best for you.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
So that's another thing to use as you're learning this.
Hmm.
But the acceptance thing, it's like what's been fascinating to me as I've kind of I can look back and see myself moving through this process of really stoking the fire of self-love and acting on it is I realized that, when you accept yourself and all your quote unquote flaws or whatever, because we're all good at things and we're all not so good at things, and we all have nasty, awful thoughts once in a while, when we can accept those things about ourselves, then we can start to accept them about other people.
Hmm.
When we're not expecting ourselves to always present as perfect. Um, we can show people when we're having a bad day, we
Right.
can we can just be who we are. We can accept other people the way they are.
Right. And then it's like a feedback kind of thing. You're
It
less
totally is.
self-critical, right? Because you're less critical of others. So then you're less critical of yourself, and then you're
Right?
less critical of others. Like, yeah, and then that's growth, right?
Exactly, exactly. And you also, the other thing I noticed was, I mean, I've always been opinionated my whole life. And of course, there was quite a long time when I felt like I needed to force my opinion on other people. And that, again, came from the insecurity. It's sort of like, I need to get everybody around me to believe what I believe so that then I'll be sure that I'm believing the right thing.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
I'm not wrong. If I can convince everybody, then I must not be wrong. And what I found is I don't really care if people agree with me or not.
Hmm.
It's fine because, again, I respect myself and my right to see things the way I see them and to believe what I believe.
Hmm.
And therefore, I can respect the right of everybody else to see things the way they see them and to believe what they believe. It doesn't have to be what I believe. It could be the total opposite. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Whereas before, that would be totally intolerable for me. I couldn't stand it. And you look at, like the polarization that we have now. Um, it's sort of like, why do you care what everybody else thinks,
Hmm.
either about you or about anything else?
Right. And that points to ego.
Yeah.
And the egos, it's like there's the ego that wants to keep us safe from harm. And that
Mhm.
includes, psychological, emotional harm.
Yeah.
So if someone doesn't like something somebody else says, maybe it's because what that other person said is inducing some cognitive dissonance within that individual. And it's like, wait a minute, no, I don't want to change my beliefs. I'm not prepared to do that. I just want that person to stop imposing their view on me. That's all. It's like they're sort of circumventing that little growth point where
Yeah.
that cognitive dissonance can come in and can actually help change who you are, most likely for the better, unless, like, you're intending on doing something harmful with the information.
Right.
That's where, like, when there's so in this age where there's so much easy access to constant information, we're being pulled in different directions with things that people are saying and posting, and if you're not like solid within yourself, then you can easily be pulled in these different directions, and that kind of goes along with the people pleasing thing
Yeah.
for me. Yeah, it's like,
Well, and again, it's like it's also important to uh to look at your beliefs periodically.
mhm,
Like, what is the belief? Who taught it to me? Why did they teach it to me?
yes,
Does it serve me to believe this?
that's a big one.
Do I really believe it?
Hmm.
And so often we just go on autopilot of I have this here's me with my beliefs, going along, and I filter the whole world and all of my experiences from these beliefs that I was taught maybe in elementary school.
Hmm.
Are they true? They might have been true then, but maybe they're not true now. Have I ever stopped and assessed these things? Have I ever even thought about it? What are my beliefs?
Hmm.
And what are my judgments? I mean, the other thing besides looking at your beliefs, this is all part of the learning who you are and the self-love process. Listen to your thoughts. You know,
Metacognition.
what
Hmm.
what are the voices in your head saying? And whose voices are they?
Hmm.
And are they accurate? So being raised in a very harsh, critical environment, I had all of these like voices in my head. You can't do that. That's stupid. What's wrong with you? Meh, 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 meh. And it was just, oh, those are my thoughts. They must be right. And then when I started paying attention to him, it's like, oh my God, that's my father's voice. He was wrong. It's like, get out of here.
Hmm. Yeah.
But most people never even pause to think about that.
It's pointing to stepping outside oneself and being the observer of the thought,
Hmm.
right? So, and I'm not going to bring in any religion or anything like that. These are just ideas,
Yeah.
and just intuitive knowings, experiences, all of it. But it's that stepping outside and being the observer. And if we're able to, for me, what helps is being the unattached, lovingly detached observer of the
Yes.
thoughts. So I'm not judging.
No.
I have no sort of like, inkling or intention for one way or the other. I'm just observing. And then that helps us, like what you were talking about, helps us to process it and say, wait, this isn't mine. This isn't me.
Right. Yeah. Just be
I
curious.
just be, yes, curiosity. Love it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was all part of my moving through that and moving into more self-love was going through all of those processes. And I mean, you and I both know that those aren't necessarily easy or fast processes to do. I mean, it's a
No, I mean, it can come with a lot of emotional pain,
hmm.
and breakthroughs at the same time. It's like
Oh yeah.
it's that ebb and flow of the life's journey, right?
Hmm.
And for at least one of the reasons why we're even talking today about this is because we are on this journey together, and we're sharing our wisdom with whoever chooses to watch, and hopefully it'll be of some positive influence where they can then carry that on to the next and the next and create that ripple,
Yes.
right? And this is how humanity helps to sort of hold each other up in this
And evolve.
and evolve. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I figure if it took me until, my late 50s, early 60s to learn this stuff, if I can help even one person figure it out, you know, in their 40s, in their 30s, in their 20s.
Mhm.
Oh, in high school would be even better.
Mhm.
If I can do that, then I mean, on one hand, it makes my suffering have some value because
Yeah.
I kind of pass along what I learned. And I mean, I can just say that once you really step into or once you master self-love, you trust yourself, you trust the guidance you're receiving,
Mhm.
you start to trust the universe and you realize that the universe has your back. Then you stop trying to control everything. And once you stop trying to control everything and trust the universe and start working with the universe and with your guides or whatever you angels, whatever you want to call them, that's when the magic happens.
Mhm.
And it's like now, I mean, I live a charmed life. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'll say to the universe, I'd really like to have blah blah blah, you know, see what you can do, And then, a couple weeks later, whatever it was shows up. And, if I'm, trying to find a place to live or get a new car or whatever, it's like, I call in, my angels and guides and say, this is what I want to do, help me find the perfect place. And what I've found is, again, not trying to control it.
Mhm.
They will present you with something that is so much better than anything you ever could think of. It's just like a miracle.
Yes.
But the hardest part of all that was for me to stop trying to control it.
Mhm.
Because we're taught we can control everything and that we have to control everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the more I tried to control, the worse everything got.
Yes. Because it's just introducing resistance into the equation, right?
Absolutely. It has to be this way. It's like, yeah, but there's something much better over here. Why don't you just wait and let that come?
Right.
Has to be this way, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so many pearls here. So wrapping it up for today, what sort of a message would you like to leave with folks that are watching?
I'll go back to my NDE. Everybody has their own NDE and they're all different. They all get exactly the kind of NDE they need at the time. But one of the very, very common threads is people saying, God does not judge us. And that's true. We are just loved. We are not judged. Humans judge, and humans specialize in that. Humans judge everything. And I would encourage everybody to try to pause and see how they're judging themselves. We're so harsh with ourselves. We'll let other people get away with all kinds of stuff, but we won't let ourselves get away with it. We judge ourselves so harshly, and somehow we've been taught to do that, but there's nothing really to judge. We're all parts of God. We're all expressions of God, and we're divine, powerful creator beings, pretending to be separate, pretending to be humans in these little human suits. And it's kind of funny because, It's like playing blind man's buff. It's like, okay, I'll put this thing over my eyes and then, try to get around and I'll stumble into things. It's kind of like that. But if we could see our own magnificence, not in an ego way, not in a way this makes me better than you, but in a way I can accept and love myself. Nobody on this planet is perfect. It can't happen on this planet. So get over trying to be that, but just love yourself. Love yourself for your flaws, not in spite of them.
Mhm.
If you do something that doesn't work out well, just pat yourself on the back. And as Leo Buscaglia used to say, you sweet old thing, you did it again. You know, we're here to learn, and we don't learn unless we make mistakes.
Mhm.
So to me, the best advice is, to start trying to love yourself, accept yourself, get to know yourself, and stop judging yourself. And as you stop judging yourself, you'll stop judging others.
Mhm. Yes.
That sound good?
That sounds amazing. That's that's amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful for folks. Thank you.
The energies right now are so supportive of this process. It's kind of like when I was thinking about this earlier, I see people getting this stuff younger and younger, and I'm like,